All right, let's dive in. Today we're tackling asset-based taxation.
Oh, yeah.
It's a topic that's getting a lot of attention
Hmm.
and could really change how we think about wealth and ownership, even personal freedom.
Absolutely.
We're using this in-depth article as our source for this deep dive.
Okay.
It breaks down how asset-based taxation works,
Right.
lays out the arguments for and against it,
Uh-huh.
and dives into those potential consequences.
Interesting.
Like, think about it. What if you were taxed,
Yeah.
not just on what you earn,
Right.
but on everything you own?
Wow.
Your home, your car,
Mm-hmm.
investments, even your business.
That's a big one.
Yeah, it's a pretty big shift
It is.
from what we're used to.
Definitely.
So what's really interesting about this topic
Well,
is that it challenges the very foundation of our tax systems.
it does.
We're used to paying taxes on income, right?
Exactly.
Asset-based taxation shifts that focus
Yeah.
to the wealth you've built up,
Mm-hmm.
no matter how you got it.
So true.
It really makes you think,
Yeah.
what if the government taxed
Yeah.
not just your earnings,
Huh?
but everything you possess?
Interesting thought.
That's a pretty drastic change.
It is. It really is.
So can you give us a clear explanation of asset-based taxation?
Well, at its heart,
Mm.
it's a system where individuals are taxed
Okay.
based on the total value of their assets.
I see.
So instead of your annual income determining what you owe in taxes,
Right.
it's the net worth of everything you own.
So let's say someone owns a home worth $500,000,
Okay.
a car worth $30,000,
Mm-hmm.
and has $100,000 in savings.
Right.
Would they be taxed on that combined $630,000?
That's the general concept,
Okay.
but the specifics would vary. You'd probably have exemptions
I see.
and thresholds like property taxes now.
Okay.
But the main change is taxing the value of that accumulated wealth,
Right.
regardless of whether it's making money or not.
So help me understand this. If someone inherits a family farm
Okay.
that's been in the family for generations,
Mhm.
but isn't really producing much income,
Yeah.
they could still get hit with a big tax bill
Right.
just because the land itself is valuable.
Exactly.
And that's a key issue with this system, right?
It is. Critics argue it unfairly impacts
Yeah.
people who own valuable things, but maybe don't have much cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
Think about retirees on fixed incomes,
Yeah?
living in homes that have gone way up in value,
Right.
or family businesses struggling to stay afloat.
Mm-hmm.
But they own valuable property or equipment.
It definitely raises questions about fairness and whether people can actually afford it.
It does.
But for a moment,
Sure.
let's look at the arguments in favor of this asset-based taxation.
Okay.
Why are some policymakers and economists pushing for this?
The main reason is wealth redistribution
Okay,
and addressing income inequality.
I see.
They argue this type of taxation could
Mhm.
help close the gap between the wealthy and everyone else. By taxing those with a lot of assets more,
Right.
the idea is by tapping into that accumulated wealth,
Okay.
governments could get more revenue
Mm-hmm.
to fund things like social programs,
see.
infrastructure projects,
Okay.
maybe even a basic income for everyone.
So theoretically,
Yeah,
it could level the playing field
potentially.
and create a more equitable society.
That's the hope.
Are there other potential upsides
Oh,
besides addressing income inequality?
some economists believe
Okay.
that shifting the tax burden from income to assets
Mm-hmm.
could encourage investment
Mm-hmm.
and boost economic activity.
Okay.
They argue that if people are taxed less on their earnings,
Right.
they'll be more likely to invest in businesses,
Mhm.
create jobs,
Yeah.
and ultimately stimulate the economy.
So it's not just about taking from the rich and giving to the poor.
Yeah.
There's this potential economic stimulus angle too.
That's the argument.
But from what we've talked about so
Yeah.
far, there seem to be some potential downsides too.
Absolutely. And that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Because while that idea of wealth redistribution might sound good,
Uh-huh.
the reality is much more complicated, and there's a lot of debate about those unintended consequences.
All right, you've definitely got me curious.
Good.
Welcome back to our deep dive on asset-based taxation.
Glad to be back.
We've established that this system aims to tax
Yeah.
accumulated wealth, not just income,
Right.
potentially reducing inequality,
Mm-hmm.
maybe even boosting the economy.
Potentially.
But like any big policy change,
Uh-huh.
there are some possible pitfalls
Definitely.
we really need to examine.
We do.
So let's dig into those potential downsides.
Okay.
One of the biggest concerns
Yeah.
the article brings up
Mm-hmm.
is the risk of forced sales.
Oh, that's a big one.
Can you talk more about that?
Sure. So imagine someone who's been saving
Okay.
and investing carefully over their lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
They've built up a portfolio of assets. Right.
Maybe a family home, a retirement account,
Yeah.
even a small business.
Okay.
Now, what if the value of those assets skyrockets
Mm-hmm.
due to factors beyond their control?
Like what?
Things like inflation
Okay.
or a booming real estate market.
I see. So their net worth goes up on paper,
Exactly.
but their actual income and cash flow
Right.
haven't really changed.
That's the issue.
And with asset-based taxation,
Yeah.
they could be looking at a hefty tax bill
Mm-mm.
based on that increased asset value,
Right.
even though they haven't actually sold anything or made a profit.
Exactly.
So they could be forced
yeah.
to sell assets,
Yeah.
maybe even at a loss,
That's possible.
just to pay their taxes.
That could happen.
So you could be forced to sell your home,
Right.
even if you love it,
Mm.
have no plans to move,
Yeah.
just because you can't afford the taxes
That's the concern.
on that increased value.
That's right.
That's scary.
It is. And it's not just homeowners.
Right.
Small businesses, family farms,
I think.
even nonprofits
Wow.
could be in the same boat.
Wouldn't this make people think twice
It could.
about investing and saving for the long term?
It's a possibility.
If you know you could be taxed
Yeah.
on gains you haven't even realized,
Mm.
you might be less likely
Right.
to put your money in things that are likely to go up in value.
That's a valid point.
It could lead to more short-term,
Yeah.
riskier investments,
Potentially.
maybe even making the economy less stable.
That's the fear.
Okay, so forced sales are a big issue.
Definitely.
What other downsides should we be aware of?
Another big one is the impact on economic competitiveness.
How so?
If one country implements asset-based taxation
Yeah.
and others don't,
Mm-hmm.
it could create a situation
Okay.
where wealthy individuals and businesses
Right.
decide to move
Okay.
to places with lower taxes.
I see. So instead of redistributing wealth within a country,
Yeah,
it could actually drive wealth and investment out of the country.
exactly. That's the worry. And that could have ripple effects, right?
Absolutely.
Job losses, less investment,
Mm-hmm.
slower economic growth overall.
It's a chain reaction.
It's like that example from the article.
Oh, right.
Norway's recent wealth tax increase.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about that?
Well, Norway has always had some form of wealth tax,
Okay.
but they raised the rates recently,
Mm-hmm.
and it's had some unintended consequences.
Like what?
It's hard to say for sure
Right.
whether it's solely due to the tax increase,
Mm-hmm.
but there's been a noticeable trend
Okay.
of wealthy folks and businesses moving their assets
I see.
or even leaving the country altogether.
So even in a country like Norway,
Yeah.
with strong social programs,
Hmm. And a high level of trust in the government, right?
people are still sensitive. Yeah.
To tax policies that seem unfair or
Yeah.
too burdensome, absolutely.
It just shows you
It does.
how tricky it is for governments
Hmm.
to get tax policy right.
It's a balancing act.
Yeah.
They need to raise revenue without hurting economic growth
Yeah.
or creating unintended consequences
Mm-hmm.
that end up hurting the people they're trying to help.
It's amazing
It is.
how this seemingly simple idea
Right.
of taxing wealth
Yeah,
can have such far-reaching and complex effects.
absolutely.
And we're back for the final part of our deep dive into asset-based taxation.
It's been a fascinating discussion.
We've explored how this system works,
Right.
talked about the potential benefits,
Yeah,
and uncovered some serious downsides to consider.
definitely.
So now let's step back and look at the bigger picture.
Okay.
What does all this mean
Mm-hmm.
for the future of ownership and economic freedom?
That's the key question, isn't it?
It is, because at its heart,
Yeah.
asset-based taxation challenges
Right.
this idea of private property.
It does.
We've always believed
Mm-hmm.
that owning a home,
Yeah.
building a business,
Mm-hmm.
investing,
Right?
these are fundamental rights,
They are?
a path to financial security.
Absolutely.
But what happens
Well-
when those assets become subject
Yeah.
to potentially heavy taxes,
Mm-hmm.
even if you haven't sold them
Right.
or made any profit from them?
That's where things get tricky.
It seems like it could trap people
Mm-hmm.
in this constant struggle
Yeah.
to earn enough to cover their taxes,
Right.
maybe even at the expense
Right.
of long-term goals,
Yeah.
like saving for retirement
Exactly.
or their kids' education.
That's a valid concern.
And wouldn't it discourage
It could.
innovation and entrepreneurship
Potentially?
if people are afraid to invest
Mm-hmm.
or start businesses
Yeah.
because of those future tax bills?
Right.
Wouldn't that slow down
It might.
economic growth for everyone?
It's possible.
It It's kind of a paradox.
It is.
Trying to create a fairer society, but maybe making it harder
Yeah,
for people to succeed financially.
that's the challenge.
And that's why it's so important
I agree.
to have these conversations,
Absolutely.
to really dig into the complexity and weigh the potential good
Yeah.
against the potential harm.
It's a delicate balance.
The article we've been discussing
Right.
doesn't take sides.
It doesn't.
It's about informing people, empowering them to join this debate
Exactly.
with a clear understanding of what's at stake.
Knowledge is power.
So where do we go from here? What
Yeah.
can we as informed citizens do to navigate this complex issue
Yeah.
and make sure our voices are heard?
The first step is awareness.
Okay.
Take the time to research asset-based taxation proposals in
Yeah.
your own area. Yeah.
Understand how they work, what they could mean for you and your community.
Don't just rely on headlines.
Right.
Dig deeper. Read articles.
Yeah. Listen to podcasts.
Exactly.
Talk to people with different views.
It's about getting the full picture.
The article also highlights
It's okay.
the importance of engaging
Yeah.
with our elected officials.
It does.
Reach out to your representatives. Ask those tough questions. Demand transparency
Hallelujah.
about their stance on this issue.
Hold them accountable.
And it's not just about national politics.
No.
These conversations need to happen at
Yeah.
the local level, too.
Definitely.
Go to town hall meetings, community forums.
Right.
Talk to your neighbors
Yeah.
about the potential impact.
It's about having those open dialogues.
Remember, this isn't about blindly supporting
No.
or opposing a policy.
You're not.
It's about fostering informed debate,
Exactly.
critical thinking, and civic engagement.
It's about understanding the complexities.
Yeah.
Working together to build a better future.
A future that's equitable,
Right.
prosperous, and sustainable for all.
Absolutely.
We've covered a lot of ground today,
We have.
and it's clear.
Yeah.
Asset-based taxation is a topic that's going to be debated for a long time.
It's a big one.
But by arming ourselves with knowledge,
Right.
engaging in these conversations,
Yeah.
holding our leaders accountable, we can navigate this complex landscape
We can.
and help shape a future
I hope so.
where opportunity thrives and the dream of ownership
Right.
remains within reach for everyone.
A dream worth fighting for.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
My pleasure.